estate industry. You should be. They Trump, the president, actually signed a bill in July about Section 8, saying that people on Section 8, if they were on there longer than 2 years and they don't have any disabilities, then they're going to be taken off of that program. There's been a lot of tweets out today, and they're saying they're going to be starting to implement that now. So what does that mean for investors? What does that mean for the economy in period, in general? But specifically for investors, a lot of investors use Section 8 for their rental properties. They rent them out to people under the Section 8 requirements, which allows them to find renters easily and charge, a little more, because the Section 8 program was charging more a lot of times than the going rate. So by that happening, we're going to have first, this is going to be a big trickle down effect. First, the investors that buy rental properties, and their main goal or focus is to actually put them on Section 8. That's going to go away. So, and people that have properties that are rented now that are on Section 8, they're going to have tenants in those properties that will not be able to pay. And anybody that knows about the process of getting somebody out of your property is very difficult. It's going to take, could take up to several months, going back and forth to court, so on and so forth. So I would start, if I were you and you had rental properties that are on Section 8, I would start preparing myself. I would start preparing the tenant to let them know, because most times they won't know, that's going to happen. Because he said, they're just starting it now, so they're probably going to be sending out memos or emails and stuff here in the near future. They're going to give people, I think, 60 to 90 days is what I've been hearing, to actually, evacuate the property or take over the property and make payments for themselves. So they're going to get 60 to 90 days that they're still going to be covered once they get that notice saying that, you're no longer on the Section 8 program. So if you act now, when that 60 to 90 days, you can work something out with the tenant. Most time, if they're on Section 8, they're not going to be able to pay you. So you have to let them know, hey, are you going to be able to pay me? And I need some proof that you're going to be able to pay me. If not, I would start that process of, removing them, or not necessarily removing. I don't want to put it in a bad sense, removing them, but finding another tenant. Because if you're going to have some tenants that, are going to be like, I can't leave. I'm not going to leave. And they're going to give you a hard time. And those are the ones you have to start the process now of eviction, right? And you may not even be able to start that process now, but you can start listing it for rent, so on and so forth, and let them know, hey, after the 90 days, I may give you some more time, but you're going to have to, if you can't afford to pay, you're going to have to evacuate the property. And at least that gives them enough heads up. And then the difficult tenants that you're going to have to deal with, as soon as that 90 days hits, you'll be able to start that process of eviction, or, so on and so forth. And, like I said, it's going to take some time, because uh, when this happens, it's going to be a lot of people in that predicament. A lot of people. So you'd be surprised how many people are on Section 8. So what's that going to do? A lot of investors, they may back off from buying properties that have a focus on putting their programs on Section 8. So, that could mean, a little more properties available out there at a better rate for rental. But it's also going to stagnate the market some, right? You're going to have people that have no place to go, which is going to cause more homelessness. You're going to have investors that have, probably several properties under the Section 8 program, and they're going to be losing a bunch of money. Some of them are not going to be able to survive, right? So they're going to have to, I'm not saying survive as far as going out of business, but those properties that they do have, if they can't afford to pay all the mortgages themselves, if they have mortgages on those properties, a lot of investors are going to lose those properties. So, that's going to be another negative on our economy, on the real estate market in general. So, also could mean an opportunity that, you can help those investors out by, buying the properties from them quickly at a fair price where they can still make money, and they don't have to necessarily have to lose the property. So that'd be, if you're wholesaling or if you're looking for properties, start talking to people. And if you know people that are on the Section 8 program, as far as the investors are concerned, start talking to them. Start, hey, are you aware of this law? Blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do? Or, do you want to sell any of your properties? You can start negotiating that ahead of time. before other folks do, and you'll probably get a better deal. And it also, like I said, it helps the investor. He can get out of the property without losing it, without going negative, and he also can make money off the property once he sells it to you. So, those are some of the things that you can do. Obviously, if your focus is Section 8, I would doesn't necessarily mean you have to get off of that program. But so what the program is stating now is that people with disabilities and elderly are going to be excluded from this new law, right? So it's just going to be people that have been on the program for 2 years or more, um, and don't have a disability, are able to work, right? And then going into that law, you can still Section 8, from what I understand, but the length of the program is only 2 years. So if you get a new renter on Section 8, then you have to realize that they're only going to be allowed to be there for 2 years, and you have to make them realize that as well. So it's not like the end of the world, except for if you have a bunch of properties that are not necessarily end of the world for that either. But if you have a bunch of properties that are on Section 8, you need to start making lots of plans now and figuring that out. Uh, and if you can afford to hold it for a few months, you can get back on the Section 8 with just new tenants that have not been on the program for 2 years, or look for elderly people or look for people with disabilities. So those are some of the things you're just gonna have to adapt and adjust. We're all in business. We're investors. We should understand the that we always need to adapt and adjust. And over the last couple of years, with the high interest rates, so on and so forth, I think we've all been adapting and adjusting. So we should be used to it. And if you're going to be a successful business owner, you always have to adapt and adjust. So just keep that in mind, that that's coming. Um, and like I said, two ways. If you're an investor that's not in the Section 8 program and you're looking for some rental properties, you can talk to those Section 8 investors and maybe buy some properties from them. If you are in the program and you have several homes on the Section 8, try to figure out what you can do to get new tenants in there, negotiate with the tenants that are there. Like I said, in most cases, they're not going to be able to afford to pay you rent because they're on Section 8. So, and then you also can look at your state laws, right? Because some of the states are still going to offer housing programs, but from what I understand, I wouldn't bank on that, and most of those are going to be uh, probably going to follow under the same guidelines as far as disabilities and uh, elderly. So, just keep that in mind. Now, down the road, there might be some state programs that come out that, allow people to be on the Section 8 for a little longer, different requirements. But again, I wouldn't bank on that at this time, especially if you have properties, because you need to go ahead and get rid of those properties, the sooner the better. What's that going to do, again, for the real estate market in general? It's going to stagnate the real estate market because you're going to have all these, new flux of properties out there that are going to be sold, that are going to need to be sold. So, in overall, in the, I guess, more in the retail side of it, it's gonna hurt the market a little bit. Rentals, so on and so forth, that drives the real estate market. And then you also have investors that buy properties to do Section 8, so on and so forth. So we're already in a slow market when it comes to real estate. It's a buyer's market, as we know. So it's going to actually slow the market down even more. Again, this is my opinion from what I believe and what other people are saying. And then as far as the interest rates, they're not necessarily lowering those any either. So there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to sit back and hold their money if they are buying. So if you are flipping, look into that as well. I gave a podcast a few weeks back talking about um, if you are in the real estate investment arena or industry and you're doing flips a lot, you want to change that over. You want to change that to more focus on rental properties because, like I said, it's tough to flip. And that doesn't, like, every market is different. I said that before. Every market is different. Every situation is different. I'm speaking in general, right? I'm speaking in general that, just pay attention to that. Hey, the market is slow. If I'm flipping, I got to hold my property 3 or 4 months. That may eat a lot of my profits, so you want to take that into consideration. Maybe look into changing your portfolio to have more rentals than you do flips or so on and so forth. There's also other programs. You can rent rooms, spare room. You have a lot of these people, a lot of these platforms out there now. Spare rooms, one just comes top of my head. Pad split. So there's other ways that you can still rent your properties and still be profitable on your properties, but you just have to adapt and adjust. You just got to start doing that research and going and make those moves now before I say before it's too late. Once all that stuff starts hitting, it's gonna be hard for you to do that because everybody else is gonna be doing it. So I always like to think ahead of the most of what other people are thinking. So if you're starting to do that now, prepare now, you're gonna be able to get in a lot earlier than other folks are when that's considered. So again, just pay attention, focus. Go ahead and research the Section 8 rule, the new rule that they're implementing, and that way you can, again, get more knowledgeable about it. A lot of investors have heard about it. If you follow, especially if you have rental properties. If not, like I said, go ahead and look into it now. Look into some of the options that you have. If you have questions, you can always subscribe, hit us on social media, so on and so forth, and we can talk. Uh, but again, like I said, it's just something. It's going to be, like I said, this is going to be a big change in the rental market arena. So again, let's just look out, prepare. Maybe in the future we'll do another episode on it once they start, getting more into it, and we can give some more ideas, more ways that you can overcome the situation, so on and so forth. But like I said, as business owners, that's what we do. We solve problems, we overcome. So it shouldn't be woe was me type of situation, especially if you're on top of it and you're doing something about it. So again, always appreciate you guys' support. Keep watching, keep listening. We're always about being short and sweet. We're not gonna give you a lot of fluff. We're gonna tell you what's going on, and you get some good information. You can keep going on about your day. So that's what we do here on the House of Rossville. Again, appreciate you guys. Peace.